you're giving me, joy that you're giving me. I want you to know that I believe in your song. Rhythm and rhyme and harmony.
Fresh, healthy, local food. As the county that has the highest poverty rates and highest food insecurity rates in the state, this is critical work, and we have a new project that we are launching this weekend. So I want to ask you, do you know where your seeds come from? From your farming or gardening? Do you know who grew those seeds and saved them? You might not. And so this is a real gap in our local food system. We have so many other wonderful things going on here in this region in our local food economy. But local seeds, until recently, until now, has not been a part of that. And this is a really critical gap because 93% of all of our crop diversity has been lost forever over the past 80 years. As part of our Appalachian heritage, it's really critical for us to hold on to the seeds that we do have that are connected to stories from our families and from this region. CFI is launching a micro-regional seed company in partnership with a network of seed savers, plant growers. We're called the Southeast Ohio Seed Savers. And we're very excited to be here at the Pawpaw Festival to invite you to join us. It will be available in stores in your area come next winter and early spring. Our goal is to secure a local seed system for future generations. We believe that food security really starts with regionally sourced, hardy seeds. So join us in securing the future of our local food and invigorating our Appalachian heritage by donating to our crowdsourced fundraising campaign. Our OU Food Matters students are going to help even look at our business plan and financial paperwork to see that we are legitimate and we've done our homework. Your actions today will make a difference for generations. Thank you.
Now, the first year we had it, it was in October 10th, and it rained all day long. We had judges from Better Homes and Gardens, the Washington Post. We felt like this Pawpaw Festival stuff was kind of cool, and we were hoping it was going to catch on. And I think it has. Last year we started doing this speaker on Sunday. We like to have a good time, drinking a Pawpaw beer, listening to music, eating good food. This is an educational event. You have all the Pawpaw tent, the Ohio Country Fair tent, the Energy Village, the Butterfly tent. It's all about the conscious party. We had a lot of great reggae last night, too, for those of you who were here. So last year we brought in Joel Salatin, and I don't know if any of you guys had heard of Joel, but we were excited to bring a person of international recognition right here to Athens because we got such a great local food movement. So this year we're following it up with this guy named Gary Nabhan. I didn't know much about Gary, but as I've done a little bit of research, this is the real deal. And we're really honored to have somebody here who we can learn a lot of stuff as far as his vision. We were talking briefly this morning. 2016 is going to be the 100th year anniversary of the American Genetic Association's Best Pawpaw Competition. Gary would like to help organize a 100th year anniversary competition for the best pawpaws. That's a really exciting idea, so we're going to be getting the Pawpaw Festival folks involved and the North American Pawpaw Growers Association, Pawpaw Foundation, and all these other pawpaw fanatics that are out there. So Gary, welcome to Athens County. Share us your wisdom, and we're all ears.
Thank you all. It's great to be in Pawpaw Nation. And I got to say, I am the only person in Arizona in the stinking hot desert dumb enough to try to grow pawpaws in an area that receives 4 inches of rainfall a year. They're happier here than they are in my orchard. I grow about 150 varieties of fruits in my own orchard, and pawpaws are one of the ones that said, put me back in Ohio, send me back to where I belong, rather than staying with me in Arizona. But I just have to say, I am in awe of the pawpaw. I grew up in Indiana. People talk about what was their coming of age moment when they were a teenager, and mine was having my first pawpaw in southern Indiana at a farmer's market where this one old gentleman in his 80s brought to the farmer's markets just one basket full of pawpaws. That was probably the most sensuous meal I've ever had. The first taste of a pawpaw is like losing your virginity in some way or another. I don't know. It's really one of those things where it's probably the most sensuous fruit as well as the biggest and most celebrated native fruit of our continent. I want to tell you a little bit about what people are doing to help forgotten fruits like the pawpaw in other parts of North America. Part of a collaboration between Slow Food USA and Chefs Collaborative, the largest organization of organic and sustainable chefs, American Livestock Conservancy that works with all the great heritage breeds of livestock, Seed Savers Exchange, Native Seed Search, a whole bunch of groups that look at the forgotten foods of North America and how to bring them back. We've been delighted by the kinds of things that all of the organizations here represented that work with pawpaws have done over the last 20, 25 years to take something that had almost become obscure, that looked like it was blinking out of attention, and bring it back so that Washington Post and New York Times and all those other places are covering it again. But there's something special about the pawpaw, in addition to its deliciousness and its heritage stories, and that's that 100 years ago, it really began the thing that we now call citizen science in the United States. There were always good naturalists, and people have been writing about pawpaws since the 1600s, but the most interesting thing to me is that the real first participatory science project in the United States was what Chris talked about, this pawpaw contest from the American Genetics Association that put out a journal called the Journal of Heredity. And Andrew's new book on the pawpaw tells his story in a way that better than I can. But basically, word went out through this journal and then from the journal to every local newspaper in the 26 states where pawpaws naturally grow, asking people to turn in what they thought was the best pawpaw, and it gave some characteristics about what they thought best was, the taste, the size, whatever. So that some of the greatest plant breeders in the United States, David Fairchild and Luther Burbank, could then evaluate those and take the best ones and try to domesticate it. And some of you know this story. I'm sure it's been told in other ways. But what I want to emphasize is that that was really the first great people's movement towards participatory science in the United States. Tens of thousands of people went out to their favorite pawpaw patches and gathered up fruits and sent them by snail mail. Remember, there was no FedEx or UPS, so a bunch of half-rotten pawpaws came in from all around the country, and then these guys like David Fairchild did judging and brought some of them into selection. Some of those then made it on to Mr. Zimmerman, and some of them made it on to Neil Peterson and all of that. But the point is that it showed that the public participation in science could be done in a really effective way. All of the pawpaw growers in this audience are still part of that movement. For some kinds of scientific issues, participatory citizen science is responsible for about a third of all the technical research on different topics like monarch butterfly migration, or how climate change is affecting lilac flowering in the United States, or how other kinds of fruits, apples, are being used by woodpeckers and other birds. One scientist sitting in an office in some university can't do that kind of science. It takes a village. It takes a pawpaw festival like this to get people fired up about a fruit and to have 1,000 observation points about what pawpaws are doing rather than just one at an experiment station like the one at Kentucky State in their land grant program. That's probably the strongest one in pawpaw research that we have in the country. So the thing that I've been talking to Chris and Andrew about, and Andrew's publisher, Chelsea Green Publishing, that also publishes most of my books, is trying to redo on the 100th anniversary of that Journal of Heredity Pawpaw Contest, a pawpaw contest that would involve social media in getting the word out. That could use FedEx and UPS to get the fruits here quicker, and to celebrate everything that this festival has done in recent years by ramping it up to re-engaging the public with this recognition that citizen science done on pawpaws has really mattered. It's been the core of all the advances that we've had to date. And the idea would be either here or at Kentucky State to have tastings with everything came in, but also involve people, perhaps even through apps on their iPhones, about recording the different characteristics of the pawpaw individual plants and the patches where they're collecting from. So we can get the elevation and the soil type, and frost-free days and all of that would go with the kind of sending off of the fruit. So a whole set of information could be gathered from those patches as well and turned in. Pawpaws are probably the best example of grassroots participatory agricultural science that we have in this country. That kind of thing is changing the face of our whole American food system. And the speaker you had last year, Joel Salatin, is probably the best example of how even the way we grow food is so rapidly changing. I can't butcher a chicken on stage like Joel normally does at his talks. I usually butcher chili peppers or prickly pear cactus fruit instead of chickens. But the point is that the advances that Joel has done from his polyface farm have really reshaped agriculture in the last 20 years more than what some of our land grant colleges have done over the last 100 years. And it's not because he's opposed to what the land grant colleges are doing and they're not doing significant things. It's that he's gleaning from them and combining it in a whole systems kind of agriculture that this country so desperately needs, because it's through that kind of thinking that we actually see farmers making more money and staying ahead of the bills and the mortgages and all of that. Joel is showing that these crazy ideas that some of you probably have can be profitable, and that's the kind of thing we need. But let me talk for a second about how this grassroots movement of participatory conservation and participatory research has changed the American food system just within the lifetimes of all of you. I was on the original board of the Seed Savers Exchange in Decorah, Iowa. And when we really got that going, I had started a nonprofit seed company called Native Seed Search about the same time in the early 80s. We got those things going, and Kent Whaley did the first survey of all our catalogs and all the commercial catalogs like Burpees and Gurney Seeds and the many other seed companies. There were only about 5,000 vegetable and fruit varieties available in all garden catalogs in the whole United States. That was just an inkling of what we had at the turn of the 19th into the 20th century, where we know we had hundreds of thousands of different varieties out in the landscape. We also know that there's been a global trend of the loss of food diversity in nearly every country in the world. A student of mine, Colin Curry, recently did a study that said diets around the world have gotten more and more homogeneous and more like each other. We've lost about 36% of the whole diversity in global diets over the last 20 years. And that's because Walmart has gone overseas. The big food companies are now selling the same stuff at a Walmart in Tokyo or Mexico City that they're selling here. How many of you have found any interesting foods in a Walmart? How many of you have found pawpaws in a Walmart? Well, that's the story. But what's happened in this grassroots heirloom seed movement, local food movement, whatever you want to call it, is that over the last 30 years, we've gone from 5,000 varieties in American gardens and on American tables to over 22,000. More than a fourfold increase. We're now the only country in the world that is not seeing declining diversity in terms of what's getting into our food system, but increasing diversity. And that's happened not because of the USDA or not because of a university scientist. It's happened because of people like you that love the incredible diversity of flavors and textures and colors that you're even getting in the local restaurants in Athens now, and at your farmers market, and at festivals like this beautiful display. All the spice plants at the one booth here just about flipped me out. I thought I was going to get weak at the knees and faint. It was like when my mother saw Elvis Presley when she was a kid or something. It was the most astonishing thing to see all of these spices that we eat every day, that few of us have ever grown all those kinds of plants. So more than a fourfold increase in the diversity of foods in our landscape and on our tables, happening because of people like you, not any top-down plan to do that. And I think that's really, really significant. One of your neighbors, how many of you know Carol Goland, that works with Ecological Food and Farm Association of Ohio? He did a thing that reminded us that what's brought that diversity back onto the table and into restaurants isn't chain franchise grocery stores, but farmers markets. In just 20 years, we've gone from something like 1,700 farmers markets in this country to over 8,500. So in her article a few years ago about Ohio apple growers, none of those apple growers could sell more than 7 or 9 varieties of apples to the chain grocery store franchises that distribute nationally. But there were another 40 or 50 or 70 varieties, I forget what, that they were able to sell through farmers markets, where on a one-to-one basis, they could tell the stories of those varieties. And that's something you don't get in a grocery store. You may see, even in Whole Foods, a little placard or a picture of a farmer, but you don't get that one-to-one contact with a farmer that is so essential to telling what that diversity is about. So you can actually sell in some farmers markets those different varieties of pawpaws now and tell their story, where they came from, why it tastes different, if it matures later or earlier, all of those things that you can't do on a placard. The word of mouth is still the best way to market diversity. Those stories, like the stories that are in Andrew Moore's book, are essential to keeping this diversity alive, because otherwise it's just an abstraction to people. Until they hear the story, until they taste it, if you're gaga about pawpaws and you invite someone to taste them and they've never tasted it before, they can't imagine why you're so revved up about them. So those tastings and the storytelling about them are as essential to saving food diversity as the genetics itself. Without those stories, without that sales pitch or whatever you want to call it, people will just say, oh, it's another fruit, and walk by you. And I think that's the amazing thing. A friend of mine who's been sort of a pioneer in the slow food movement, Poppy Tooker from New Orleans, once said that all you need to know about saving food diversity in North America is a simple phrase that her grandmother told her, which was, honey, if you want to save it, you got to eat it. If you care about something, but that you don't buy it from farmers, you don't eat it and talk about it to other people, that farmer's going to call out that particular variety because there's no market whatsoever. Poppy started a few years ago the Eat It to Save It movement. And this remarkable thing about that increase from 5,000 food varieties on American tables to 22,000 varieties 20 years later is that that's the single most cost-effective conservation movement in the history of America. For 22,000 varieties, the economic investment in getting those in terms of grants to nonprofit organizations and stuff like that is less than what the government pays to help save a single species like the condor or the polar bear or an orchid or a panda. The grassroots movement to save heirloom vegetables and fruits have saved more diversity with less money from foundations, from government sources, from wherever, than any other kind of conservation movement in the history of the United States. The interesting thing about that to me is that there's no leader, there's no single hero. It takes a village. It doesn't matter whether one person saves seeds, because if those seeds die when that person dies, we haven't gained anything at all. But it's the networks, the kind of networks between pawpaw growers that you see at this festival year after year, the camp out at the Seed Savers Exchange that I try to get to it every third year. That's where I take most of my seeds home with me that I plant the next year, new varieties over and above the stuff I'm already saving. We've seen the same thing happen with the proliferation of seed libraries in the United States. We had a national conference of public libraries in May in Tucson, 10 years after the start of the seed library movement. But how many of you know about the little free library movement for books, where you just put books in a box on the roadside? We're doing that with seeds now. Boxes along the side of the road that say, free seeds for the taking. When you have a harvest, bring the seeds back to the box and we'll distribute them here. So this grassroots sensibility that we can do it ourselves, whether or not the government's paying attention to it, whether or not the National Science Foundation understands what we're doing, means that we have tens of thousands of people involved in plant conservation of edible plants that we never had before. And they're making huge, huge differences on many, many fronts. The next step, I think, is what we see with some of the selections of pawpaws here. And that some of you may have read about in Dan Barber's book called The Third Plate, Sustainable Agricultural Center on Hudson, Stone Barns. And what he's saying is that an heirloom variety of pawpaw or tomato or an apple tree, whether it's a Rhode Island greening or a Ashmead's kernel for cider making, came into existence and stayed into existence because people constantly tweaked it. That an heirloom isn't something that you lock up in a museum like an old quilt and keep static, but it's something that farmer after farmer over decades and centuries and millennia gradually improved. And that's how we've gotten the diversity of crops that we have today. The next step is thinking that, heirlooms are not just something we let stay still and we want our Brandywine tomatoes this year to look like the ones last year, but we start paying attention to all those variants and we take care of those just like we did the original Brandywine tomato. And the most remarkable thing that we've learned through 10 years of doing this, Renewing America's Food Traditions Project, is we did surveys of every region in the United States for all their unique varieties, place-based varieties that are adapted to this climate, this soil, this topography. And what we found out is that the Appalachian region from southern Ohio and southern Pennsylvania in to Georgia and the South, through West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, still remains more diverse in its crop varieties than the whole rest of the continent combined. So coming from the Southwest, where we have Native American tribes still growing the same varieties of corn they were growing 4,000 years ago, and blue corn and yellow corn and speckled corn and red corn and a million other colors that we see everywhere there. I thought we had the most crop diverse region of any, but you're standing in it. You are in the place with the greatest number of apple varieties, greatest number of corn varieties, squash varieties, bean varieties, pole beans, crowder peas, all of that stuff from here down into the deep south along the Appalachian corridor of any place in North America. You are the touchstone for diversity in this continent. The great news about that is that the processes that made that diversity happen are still going on. You can still go in North Carolina or West Virginia into a holler or a cove and go to a general store in a little town, and there'll be barrels of seeds, and most of them are from local sources. And when someone sees a variant of a bean, a pole bean, a corn patch bean, they'll save that and pass that seed on, and someone will say, well, what do you call that bean, to their Uncle Wilbur that gave them the bean? And he said, I don't know, I haven't named it, you name it. We'll call it Uncle Wilbur's bean. And those kind of beans are all over the Southeast, all over every little small town in Appalachia. It seems remarkable that it took us that long to understand that from here down past the Smokies into the Atlanta area is the richest source of crops anywhere in North America. And the people that have done that all along are still keeping it alive, just like the gorgeous music we heard came out of those same communities. The old-time music and the seed saving in many communities go together. We want to end by having you do something participatory. So I'm going to make you all stand up and stretch for a second while I get my little book here. And this is participatory reading, where I'm going to read you a line, and then I'm going to motion to you, and you're going to read the same line. Like I was Pete Seeger and I had a banjo here, and so you're going to hear every line twice, once by me and once by yourself. This is actually just called Taking Your Vows. If none of you have been married lately, you get to get married again now. We as gardeners, farmers, cooks, and eaters wish to affirm our sacred vows. To steward, love, and serve the astonishing diversity of food crops and their blessed ferment of cultures here on this earth. Through sickness and in health. I had to throw one line in that I stole. In times of crisis and times of joy.
In times of crisis and times of joy.
To sow the seeds of food justice. To glean the fruits of food security. To distill the wild brews of food democracy. To savor the flavors of true food sovereignty. Through our own actions and our own eating patterns. So that we all may eat what we have truly sown. We hereby renew our covenant with this earth. To humbly become one more way that seeds themselves regenerate into more seeds to nourish all of us. Now go out to love one another, to sow, reap, and feast in peace. God bless you. I love you all. You're now married.
I want to thank the Ohio University Food Studies Program. They've helped become a sponsor for the Pawpaw Festival. Many thanks to OU. Well, you guys can make a difference. That's what this is all about. Make a difference with every bite. Not just about the food, it's about the stories, it's about the music. And our next band coming up, Appalachian Intellect from Chillicothe, pawpaw-rich neck of the woods, due to the Shawnee Indians. Drink one of the 10 Ohio Pawpaw microbrews. Rejoice in this beautiful day. Thank you for coming. Have a nice day.
Footprint left is your energy sufficient. Upgrade this homeless street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade. Upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade you. 20% more energy efficient over the next decade is doable. We just need to upgrade. The stakes are high, the time is now. We've all got a part to play. What can one person do to make Athens County better? Organize your neighborhood, write everyone a letter. Talk about energy education to reduce how much we're using, and electric aggregation, so less money we'll be losing. Start a green schools initiative, a community solar garden, a fleet of new electric cars, and a brand new solar farming, whether we own or rent or manage, run a business or go to college. We can make our buildings better if we all just pool our knowledge. Upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me. Upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me. You know, I've never had a sing-along with this song. Should we try one? Think you can learn that chorus? I'll do it again. Upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade. Come on! Upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade. Again, upgrade this house, upgrade this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade. Oh, upgrade this house, this street, this town. Upgrade Athens County 4 miles around. Together there's nothing we can't do. Let's upgrade me and upgrade. Play it!
you, Steve. That was awesome. Now we're going to hear from a man who really doesn't need much of an introduction from me. Born and bred here in Athens County, and he is working hard to help transform this economy. I'm talking about David Wilhelm. David's got a long and illustrious resume. He was Bill Clinton's campaign manager in 1992, chair of the DNC. After that, he got into helping this community through economic development, doing venture capital, and most recently, he's been developing renewable energy projects all over this country and all over the world. In fact, doing some really cool stuff in sub-Saharan Africa, helping folks with clean water and solar energy at the same time. And he's going to talk to you today about what he is doing here in Athens County right now.
I appreciate that introduction. You gave it just the way I wrote it, and I appreciate it. This is my hometown. I went to East Elementary. West may be the best, but I went to East. East is the least, I guess. I don't know. No, we stand strong at East Elementary. I went to Athens Middle School. I went to Athens High School. I went to Ohio University. Yeah. I am as deep Athens as you can be. My mother is buried at the Alexandria Cemetery, and my father, unfortunately, he's struggling right now. He's in Columbus, but my father's very well known to a lot of people in the environmental world. For 35 years, he was a professor of geography at Ohio University, and a lot of people who have an environmental mission to them throughout the state of Ohio, throughout the country, got that environmental mission, at least in some part, from the teaching of my father. And I'm very, very proud of the role that he is in this region and in this community. I had a speech prepared, and I'm not going to use it. I want to talk about what my father would want me to talk about today. He would want me to talk about a little bit about the history, a little bit about the geography, and how the history and geography of southeastern Ohio has led to upgrade Athens and the extraordinary work that people like Roger Wilk is doing, and Jeff Greenfield is doing, and Chris Shamil, and so many people in the city of Athens and the county of Athens who've decided to take their energy future into their own hands and make an enormous difference for this county, for this city, and I think for this region of southeastern Ohio. We know the history, or we should know. We should never forget the history of this region, because it is a history that revolves around energy. It is a history where southeastern Ohio, at various times in American history, has been at the absolute center of business, entrepreneurship, and energy growth in the United States of America. If you go to Lake Hope, we all know Lake Hope, right? I used to ride my bicycle to Lake Hope when I was in high school. If you go to Lake Hope, what do you see at Lake Hope? You see an iron furnace. That iron furnace, there are iron furnaces all over southeastern Ohio. At the time of the Civil War, the people of southeastern Ohio created out of the Ohio wilderness an unbelievable iron industry that fueled the North, fueled the industrial growth of our country, fueled the North during the Civil War. Do you remember the battle of the ironclad ships between the what was it, the Merrimack and the Monitor? The Monitor was built from iron in Jackson, Ohio. Woo! Yeah! So, out of the Ohio wilderness and out of Welsh settlers, my dad would add, this extraordinary iron industry was built. But it was limited by environmental factors. Because if you look at photographs of southeastern Ohio in the area around Lake Hope in the 1860s, 1870s, there is not a tree to be seen. because they had all been cut down to make charcoal, to fuel the furnaces that made the iron that built this country. The people of southeastern Ohio could not have worked harder, could not have done more. It's a miracle what they created in the middle of the Ohio wilderness. It is a testament to the entrepreneurial capability of the people of southeastern Ohio. And we led this country in this very important economic area of industrial production of iron manufacturing. We led it, but we couldn't lead it forever. There was a limiting factor. The limiting factor was environmental, but you can still go. You don't have to go very far from Athens to see the remnants of what was the greatest iron manufacturing in the United States, and it's right here in your very neighborhood. So we know that's the story of iron. More familiar to this region is the story of coal. Well, on days when we didn't ride our bike to Lake Hope, sometimes we rode our bikes to Burr Oak. And if I rode my bike to Burr Oak, and that is a tough bike ride, we'd go by what? We'd go by Millfield. What's in Millfield? The greatest mine disaster in Ohio history. 120 people were killed on one day, I think in the 1920s, mining coal. 110 of them were miners, and 10 of them were the owners of the mine. That always kind of stuck with me, that everyone died, including mine inspectors in that mine on that day. But you couldn't find a hillside virtually in southeastern Ohio where there wasn't mining going on. More coal was shipped out of this town of Nelsonville than any town in the United States of America. The United Mine Workers started in a town called Shawnee in Perry County. And the founder of the United Mine Workers, John L. Lewis, one of the greats of the labor movement, was a well-known figure in the city of Athens. People knew him, he knew the people of Athens. We had coal seam number 6, one of the great coal seams in the United States of America, that drove the mining industry in this part of the United States. No people could have done more to build the energy of this country than the people of southeastern Ohio. They worked as hard as anybody could. They worked themselves to death. It was an achievement from an entrepreneurial perspective of unprecedented proportion. An amazing thing. But what was the limiting factor? Ultimately, it was environmental. When I was in high school, there were postcards. They were sold in Athens. You could get postcards of something, this extraordinary machine called the Big Muskie. You've seen the Big Muskie. You can still see the shovel of the Big Muskie at a roadside rest stop, northern Perry County, Morgan County, in that area. The Big Muskie was the largest shovel dragline ever built in world history. It removed a layer of soil 3 times the size of the soil that was needed to be removed to build the Panama Canal. It was an extraordinary feat of human mechanical achievement. It was an extraordinary thing that we did in this area. But what was the limiting factor? I mean, at the end of the day, it was environmental. No more coal to be mined, and we're out of resources. And ultimately, we have learned that it was unhealthy. But that is no shame to the people of this region who worked so hard and did so much and gave of themselves to build a strong energy economy for the United States of America. That's the history of Southeastern Ohio. We should not forget it, and we should honor it. And those of us who are environmentalists or took my dad's classes and we care about the environment, we should not for 1 second demean or look down on the people that work so hard to build a coal economy in this country, or work so hard to build the iron that built this country. They were doing everything they knew they could do to make this a strong country. But there was a limiting factor, and it was environmental. And as hard as these people worked, they often did not share in the fruits of that work. And a lot of the wealth that they created did not stay in Southeastern Ohio, but helped build mansions in Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh, and New York City. And that's part of the story of Southeastern Ohio, too. We built this country. We created enormous wealth. The wealth did not stay here. And the limiting factor on jobs was environmental. So how do we think about that as we move into the future? And by the way, I'm going to say a word on behalf of Thomas Edison here. Who's the greatest Ohioan? Thomas Edison is an interesting guy. Right now, Thomas Edison's a little out of vogue, and in part because of the Tesla car. Nikola Tesla is like made this comeback. Well, in their day, Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla were fierce competitors at the very beginning of the electricity industry. Thomas Edison believed in what today we call distributed generation. He believed in local generation. He believed in solar energy. He believed in batteries. He believed in local control. He was anti-utility. He thought we could all do this at the neighborhood level. And Nikola Tesla came along with his alternating current technology, and at that time and at that moment in American history, that technology was too powerful to be denied, and so alternating current allowed the transfer of electricity over broad expanses, and so you would have giant generation facilities at remote locations, and you would have big musties digging out the dirt to dig up big coal to take it to a remote facility. And Nikola Tesla beat Thomas Edison when it came to the vision of how electricity would be generated and transmitted and at what level. This is a debate that is not yet completed. What if technology caught up with Thomas Edison's vision? What if we had solar that was price competitive? What if the marginal cost of delivering electricity became zero? What if Thomas Edison's vision of local control, of energy that's produced locally, at the community level, that is clean, where we had batteries that could store it when the sun isn't shining? What if we came to that point? What would happen then? Well, what would happen then is what is happening now. And so Thomas Edison's day is yet to come. So this brings me back to the county and city of Athens. We have a history. when it comes to energy, driven by Nikola Tesla's victory, where the people of this region went to work to produce the fuel source that went to remote, huge generation facilities, and that was coal, and that was the electricity model of the last 100 years. But now things have changed, and now technology has caught up with Thomas Edison's vision, and now the people of Athens County are remembering their history. And so what has happened in the County of Athens and the City of Athens? The County of Athens and the City of Athens has said, we remember that history, we understand this technology that has been developed, we are going to vote, the county and the city separately, we are going to vote to aggregate our electricity demand so that nobody but ourselves is going to be in control of our energy future. Woo! It's not going to be the utilities. It's not going to be a vision of what might happen in the 1910s. It's not going to be coal driven. It's going to be driven by ourselves at the community level. It's going to be cleaner. It's going to be greener. We believe in efficiency. We're going to make it happen. We're going to make it happen in a way that creates sustainable employment for our own people. And we're going to do it in a way that the limiting factor, well, maybe there is no limiting factor. And it's sure as heck not going to be environmental. We are going to act in a manner that learns from our history, but is consistent with the best plans that we have for ourselves. Athens County and the City of Athens, in separate elections, have voted to aggregate their electricity demand. The City of Athens and the County of Athens have come together and formed SOPEC, which is led by Roger Wilkins. SOPEC, on behalf of the people of the City of Athens and the County of Athens, has issued an RFP, and in that RFP they have expressed the vision that the county and the city has for its own energy future. And that vision consists of solar projects in the County of Athens and very aggressive energy efficiency, in addition to providing, when all combined, very cost-effective clean energy, or cleaner energy, as clean as it can be at this point in our history. The last time I saw Roger, it was in Denver, Colorado, at a meeting of the Clinton Global Initiative, and President Clinton was lauding Roger and Athens for the work that it is doing in the field of aggregation. We went to a couple of working sessions, and people from around the country were stunned at what Athens had done. They had no idea that people in the state of Ohio, and I think there are 10 or 11 other states like it, could actually vote to aggregate their electricity demand to ensure that clean energy and energy efficiency was provided. They were stunned at this. They were amazed. President Clinton spoke personally about it from the stage at the conclusion. Athens, City of Athens, County of Athens is in right now a competition for something called the Georgetown Prize. The Georgetown Prize will be awarded to some community or communities that have been most innovative when it comes to the promotion of clean energy and energy efficiency. And there are going to be the standard, expected competitors for that prize, Palo Alto, and I could come up with other communities like that are high income, that are fine communities, but that have a fundamentally different history from ours. I think what's absolutely unique and absolutely compelling is the story that Athens, Ohio is going to tell the board that will determine the winner of the Georgetown Prize. That in this community that worked so hard to build the iron manufacturing industry of this country, worked so hard to build the coal manufacturing of this industry, that worked so hard to run the Big Muskie, that has done so much and has, at the end of the day, so little to show for it because of the environmental limiting factor that existed, has taken its energy future into its own hands and has decided nobody is going to tell us how we're going to move forward but us. I think that story is a better story than Palo Alto's story. I think that story is a story that will rightfully bring the attention of this nation on Athens County and Athens City. So when you're looking at this tent and you're talking to your neighbors and you're talking about Upgrade Athens and you see this ridiculous figure, Captain Upgrade. Captain Upgrade is a symbol, I'm sad to say. You are where we've come to. Our history brings us here. Our geography brings us here. It's really very, very cool that a community has come together, has voted to aggregate. If you ever wanted economic populism, if you wanted to control your own history, if you want to control your own energy future, you are doing it. Roger's doing it. We're all part of making history. Thank you very much.
I'm inspired. I know Captain Upgrade is inspired, so he's going to talk to you about what we can do right now to realize the vision that David just outlined for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Captain Upgrade. The county of Athens has been overcome by Count Kilowatt, and I am on a search for Count Kilowatt. In the Athens County aggregation area, there are 10,000 homes that need Captain Upgrade to get rid of Count Kilowatt. We can tell you whether you are one of those 10,000 homes. And Count Kilowatt could come in and do a free assessment for your home. And if you are an eligible home, we have a low-cost, high-impact energy efficiency project, program, and package that will save you more money than you spend over the lifetime of that cost. Captain Upgrade is here to get rid of Count Kilowatt.
Definitely talk to Upgrade Athens. Those folks are going to get you involved. Thank you all. Thank you very much.